Hello there and welcome to this next Python programming video all about iteration. Okay, so we've looked at sequence going in order, we've looked at selection, which is if statements and how to use them, and now we're going to look at simple iteration. So in Python there are two primitive loop commands, and the first one is something called a while loop and the next one is called a for loop. Now, iteration is just the formal term for repetition, really, and these two things here are the keywords we're going to use to show how to do that today. So, taking the while loop first, a while loop will basically execute a set of commands while a condition is true. Okay, so while a condition is true. So to set these up, just going to make a little variable, let's call it x, and we're going to say x is equal to 1. And I'll say while x is less than 10, colon, enter. And you'll notice there that I've tabbed in by an indent of one tab there. And that is done automatically because the while has gone blue because it's a keyword. X is my my variable, the less than is my operator, and then 10 is just a value that I'm comparing it against. And then you put a colon and then you press enter and it should tab you in exactly one tab. So so now I'm inside the loop, I can basically output something here. Let's just print x to see what that does. And then I need to make sure that x is going to increment or basically add 1 to it every time. So x equals x plus 1. Okay, and it's going to do that every time. Now, I don't need to put end while or anything like that because whatever's indented inside the while loop will be run while this condition is true. So let's just have a look at what this does. There we go. So you'll notice that it basically goes inside there. It prints x out because x is 1 on the first pass. Prints 1 out. Then we say x, which is 1, plus 1, which is 2 in total, and put that back in x. So x becomes 2. And it prints that out on the next pass, adds 1 to it, prints it out on the third pass, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8, and 9. Okay? Now notice it only goes up to 9. So it says while x is less than 10. If I put in there less than or equal to 10, then if I run this again, it should output all 10 now. There you go. So the 10th one is produced. And that's essentially all a while loop does. Whatever condition is put here, it will continue while that condition is true. If I put while true, then basically it would last forever. And if I run this again, you'll see here, you see the numbers going in there. It's adding 1 to it every time, very quickly, I might add. And it will never stop because this condition is never going to fail because it's just always true. So yeah, that's one way to fill up your screen with lots of numbers. And if I wanted to, let's say, okay, get to 1,000 and then stop, I could also add in an if statement inside there. So we did selection in one of the other videos. I could say if x is equal to 1,000, I forgot my colon, then I can use the word break, and that basically will execute and finish the while loop for me. And I'm missing another equal symbol there. So if x is equal or compares to 1,000, then run this. So let's just run this. There you go. So it gets to 999. Now, okay, so what it does is it goes up to 1,000. It doesn't actually produce the 1,000 because it finishes on that 1,000 one there. So if I put 1,001 in, it would print out all 1,000 numbers for me, which it's done there. Okay, so break is one way of actually getting out of the loop if you ever need that. But that's as difficult as we really need to get inside the while loop. And the next iteration we're going to look at is the for loop. And for loops are very, very important. We use them quite often, and they are used for different data structures. And more commonly, they're used for something called a list in Python. And we're going to do a separate video on lists anyway, but I'm just going to make a very quick list. And you know that you've used a list if you've used square brackets. And I'm going to put in here a list of teams. And I say a list of teams. The greatest team in the land, followed by some pseudo teams, some knockoff teams that no one's really heard of before, that haven't really won any trophies. Put them there. So I've got a list here of 3 teams. And what we're going to do is we're going to use a for loop, and I'm going to put in there J in teams. So for J in teams, do something. Now this J, what on earth is this? This is a local variable. I could put in there, I could change it for items, I could change it for lemons. It's probably best actually if I stick it to item. For each item, or I could even call it team, I suppose. For each team in teams, print the team. And let's just have a look at what this does. A for loop is a static loop, so it runs a set number of times. So when I say for team in teams, it basically goes through the length of the list, which is 3. So it goes Manchester United, City and Liverpool, and it prints them out for me. Not bad. What else can I do with this? I could use this to print out something like this. So for L in, put that there, print L. So let's have a look at what this does then. You'll notice that it says for each L, so I've represented L as a letter here, and it takes one by one through my string. It'll take each letter and it will print out whatever's inside L. So the first pass, it goes through J, prints that out. Second pass through O, prints that out. Third pass through N, prints that out all the way down. Even the space gets printed out here and follows my surname as well. And then it stops because it's a static loop. It will only loop for the length of the string that I've given it. So the last thing then that I will also look at is something called range. And we can use the range function to basically loop a given number of times. So if I said for X, let's not use X, we used X before. Let's use J, for J in range of 10. And we're going to print out J and see what that gives us. So you'll notice now after my name, I've got 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So what it does is it goes and starts off at 0, and that's its default starting point is 0. Up to, but not including the number or the argument inside the brackets. So up to, but not including 10. Now I can force this to start off at whatever number I like. So if I put 2, comma, it said this first one means starting off number of 2, up to, but not including 10. So now if I run this again for you, it should go from 2 up to 9. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yes, it does. Excellent. And then I could get more complex if I wanted to. I could say go from 2 to 100 and give me every increment of 2 or every step of 2. Okay? And if you see here, the IDE, the thing that I'm using, the software, it's trying to tell me exactly what's going on here. So when I put range, it says what's your start number, what's your stop number, and what do you want to step. So I want to step every 2. So basically what this is going to do, it's going to start at 2, and it's going to go from 2 all the way up to 100 or 98, because that's the last one. So 2, 4, 6, 8, all the way down, all the way to 98. Now, why is it stopped at 98? Because if I add 2 to that, it's 100. And remember, it's up to, but not including the stop number. So there we go. For loops and while loops, very simple video in Python. And just to recap, we have a while loop that will continue until this condition is false. And then for loops are static. They will loop a set number of times. I can specify the number of times. It can loop through a string, or it can even go through a list of items. And that's it. So practice those, because the more you practice those, the better programmer you will be.